Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the top-tier brewing stand. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
It's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think. Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Hey, howdy, hey, my brewing brothers and sisters.
Greetings, cretins. How are you all today?
Doing pretty good. A little tired. I am tired.
Yeah?
I gotta admit, I had the Venti Starbucks Crappuccino, whatever it was.
Yeah. Well, you've probably been volunteering at all those fires up north, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I've been fighting fires in my spare time.
Yeah. Piloting, right? Air tanker support.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's, they don't have enough of us, so, you got to jump in and do what you can do every now and then.
Yeah. Well, you had that spare tank evil twin that you were able to take up there.
No, we wouldn't do that. But yeah, it's so the other day we're walking to the grocery store or something. The family and I were in the grocery store, and the sun, we were staring like straight at the sun because the smoke was so thick. You could stare straight at the sun. It was just like a blood red ball.
Wow.
In the sky. It was just the most bizarre thing, because normally you can't stare straight at the sun.
That's right.
But the smoke was so thick you easily could.
Wow.
Kind of freaky. So, yeah. Although the wind came in today and kind of blew the skies clear. Very bizarre. Nice. Yeah. One of those bizarre things. Speaking of bizarre things, I haven't seen John Blickman in a while. It's been since the conference.
I understand he's been in Europe and other places, various places lately. So.
Oh yeah.
There
you go. Is he dealing with is he in Hungary, building a fence, or trying to help the refugees? Which is it?
Probably just distributing brewing equipment.
Right. Yeah.
Near and far.
There you go. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Haven't seen him since or heard from him since the Homebrewers Conference, which was quite a blast. And
it was.
Yeah, I assume he's working on more great and interesting equipment.
He is indeed, and I am waiting until we can start announcing it probably next month.
See, he doesn't tell me squat. But I would imagine that once the thing's announced, go check it out on their website. So you should,
that's right,
as a listener, be perusing the Blickman Engineering website and seeing all the goodies that they have. And when they come out with new goodies, check that out. And you can always pick it up at many fine retailers, including More Beer. I think you can get
that's
that
right.
there. And a lot of your local homebrew shops go in and say, "Hey, I want this Blickman stuff," and they'll hunt it down for you. I'm sure
they'll set you up.
Yep. And they make great stuff. Innovating your brew day, as JP likes to say.
That's right.
Good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, we've got random Q&A today?
Yep, random Q&A. We've
just kind of catching up Q&A. We're only like 1,000 questions behind.
Yeah. These ones I was able to harvest from the last couple of months, so they're mainly this summer, because they were easy to find. But we do need to go through and kind of find the ones that have gotten kind of lost over the years.
Yeah,
make sure we get those out there too.
There's literally like 800 of them.
Yeah,
I've looked. I was like, oh my God, we will never ever cover all these questions. Well, and if you want your question never answered, send it in to brewstrong at thebrewingnetwork.com, and we'll jump right on that. Although we are covering some of the more recent ones. We're doing a little bit better now. We just haven't really cut the whole backlog down. That's why sometimes someone will have written in like 5 years ago. Somebody wrote in a question and we're getting to it now. Well, hey, what can I say? This is the way we roll.
Yeah, and they're still timely because there are always people at every level of experience that are having the same questions that you do.
You may have given up on homebrewing. You may have sold all your gear. You may have stopped listening, and you may have gone to live in another country. But we're still answering your questions. We reserve the right to answer all of them. All right, let's do this. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll start in with a question, I guess.
That's right.
All right, back after this.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at BlickmanEngineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy. It's the first time the Brewing Network microphones turned on, More Beer was behind it. More Beer sponsors the programming on the BN because, like you, they love brewing. And like the Brewing Network, they love sharing their knowledge. Morebeer.com isn't just a website to place your next equipment or ingredient order. Morebeer.com also gives you access to free beer information that will make you a better brewer. Go to morebeer.com and click into the Learning Center. You'll find podcasts, technical facts, video tutorials, and more, including access to The Buzz, More Beer's social network of more than 5,000 members. And some of them might even be crazier about beer than you are. Get over to morebeer.com today and take advantage of The Buzz, the forum, the Learning Center, and make sure you're signed up to receive the newest More Beer catalog. More Beer, bringing you absolutely everything for beer making. When I order a beer, I want my server to know more about it than I do. I want someone who enjoys good beer and loves helping others enjoy it too. I want someone who knows how to pour a perfect pint for every beer style. I want a Cicerone.
The Cicerone Certification Program is creating the type of people who help you enjoy great beer. Home brewers and craft beer lovers know beer is more flavorful and complex than ever, and it takes some serious knowledge to store and serve beer right. Cicerones know beer. There are 3 levels in the Cicerone program: Certified Beer Server, Certified Cicerone, and Master Cicerone. Cicerones are truly the sommeliers of beer. The best beer locations have a Certified Cicerone on staff. Relaxed and unpretentious. Cicerones are tested on storing and serving beer, beer styles, flavor and tasting, the brewing process and ingredients, and pairing food with beer. Learn more about your next beer guide at cicerone.org. Certified Cicerone, because it takes top talent to present a perfect pint.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
All right, we're back.
Yes, we are. I was just checking the pot roast to make sure it'll be ready later.
Okay, all right. You got enough for all of us?
Yeah, actually.
There you go. All right, we'll be right over after the show.
Cool.
First question.
Hello. I am a longtime listener of the BN, and in some of the more recent shows, Jamil has made mention.
It's going to take a long time if you read all that crap that people type. They feel like they need to type a whole lot in order to fill out. So feel free to edit as needed. Trim off the fluffery.
I'll try what I can, yeah. Or I'll just read faster.
Yeah, well, there you go.
Normally, I would have assumed that these would be derivatives of malt precursors, but now I'm wondering if they could also possibly be hop-derived, or if hops could undergo similar reactions. Explanation. I operate a small hop farm in Ontario, Canada, and have centennial hops that were picked from first-year plants, pelletized and vacuum packaged in a kitchen-grade vacuum packager, forcibly leaving a small amount of oxygen behind. They smelled of juicy, sweet citrus, almost tangerine, but with a berry note, when packaged, and after 1 year in packaging stored in a freezer, they now smell of cherry candy. Normally, I would write this off as a delicious anomaly, but it is incredibly similar to a flavor aroma I tested in a can of 100 Mile Ale, which is locally produced ale sourced from Ontario-grown hops. Not mine, which intrigued me at the time, because I couldn't attribute it to a particular hop variety or malt. Questions. Noting the very difference between the aroma of fresh and 1-year-old hops that weren't in beer, so there is no yeast influence, can oxidation produce fruit flavors or notes in hops?
Well, oxidation certainly happens, and you do get what they call hulapones, which are indeed bitter. But I'm not real sure about the estery part of them. It could be that this underlying cherry aroma was actually there, but as a less active volatile, so that the more volatile aromas, oxidized, or more susceptible aromas oxidized over that year, leaving behind the cherry ester, which may have been there from the beginning, or it may be an oxidation product. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, I'd kind of go the same way. Also, if you're smelling the fresh hops initially at room temperature, and then later on you pull this thing out of the freezer, they smell completely different at, freezer temperature and at room temperature.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And I think also what perhaps like some of those other compounds have either blown off or have oxidized and now are no longer, now they're just something else entirely. So you can get some changes there. I don't know that's. I don't know if there's esterification of hop compounds per se.
Yeah, I
wouldn't
think
so. Yeah. So, yeah. And he continues.
Couple questions for Jamil. One, he speaks about brewing constantly to get better. Is he speaking about brewing full 5 to 10 gallon batches, or as long as your process is the same, can you do smaller brews, 2 to 3 gallons? Number 2, the online Cybele Concise course respected in the brewing field. I'm looking to get some experience to perhaps move into the field. Do I need to just suck it up and go to either UC Davis or do the on-site Cybele course? I have a BS in biology.
I think if the process is the same, the thing is the equipment and everything else. I think you really want to keep that as consistent as possible when you're brewing. And so, if you're going to change to a different set of gear to brew these 2-gallon batches and then another set of gear to brew 5-gallon or 10-gallon, it's better to just keep the gear consistent so that you're starting to remove that
variables
from the equation. Yeah, and you're kind of settling in and you're able to repeat. I mean, the most important thing is being able to actually repeat a batch. 6 months down the road or a year down the road, have a beer turn out virtually the same. And that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people because they don't brew enough. And so their process, that, their timing on things, their settings of things vary so much that the beer just turns out, radically different each time. So it could be, I think it's helpful. put it that way, brewing any size batch more is helpful. But I think ideally you want to keep everything consistent and use that to your advantage.
This next one comes from...
Hold on.
Well, let's go on to question 2.
Right. You got to give John a chance. We'll teach you. We'll teach you.
It's okay, Taylor. Don't worry about it.
You could go back and listen to some shows. I think you go back and listen to the last 8 years of shows. And after you've done that, you'll understand how John and I work. All right? It should only take you a month or two to listen to all the shows. John?
So the online Siebel course, is it respected in the brewing field? Is it, I understand Alex to be asking, is it a good way to get the education you need to enter the brewing field? Mm-hmm. Now, he didn't say whether he's interested in being a brewer or being more of a quality, lab person with his biology degree. Mm-hmm. I asked a couple of people. I asked Chris White and my friend Lauren Ziedler over at Ballast Point what their opinions were, and both of them agreed that the Siebel course is respected. Chris made a good point that actually attending the Siebel course and the networking and the hands-on aspect of that is really very important. And Lauren agreed that if you really want to get into brewing, having that practical experience with other brewers, with other professional brewers in a commercial setting makes a big difference. As being able to step right into a career there. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, definitely respected, but experience counts for a lot too.
Right, I assume the concern over respected is not. It seems more that if I do this, can I use that to get a job versus what am I going to learn there? Mm-hmm. So it seems like the person doesn't really have a concern over that. And so that for me, just doing one of these, courses in order to, somehow, impress somebody. I think, when I hire people, I'm more impressed with what somebody knows or, their motivation than I am with, what course they've finished. Now, if I had people equally, available and they had taken a UC Davis or Siebel or American Brewers Guild or whatever.
Versus not. And, would I compare them? Would I consider them all the same? I'm very fond of the UC Davis program and what they do there. And maybe it's part because I went to UC Davis and also we're real close to Davis and we get a lot of, traffic through there and we have a good relationship with them. So, but for me, that tends to be something I hold a little higher esteem. But that's just me. I think they're all good programs. But it also depends. They didn't say what course they were talking about. There's multiple courses. And, so at UC Davis, it's essentially, they even have like a master's program in brewing. So, that's, there's the 1 week course and then there's the thing you do for, 6 months. And so there's a lot of variability there. I would say to the person, go back and listen to our shows where we covered getting a job in a brewery. I think that's, there's a lot of useful information there. And sometimes, taking a course isn't necessarily the best way to go. And if you're opening your own brewery, then taking a brewing course is probably the worst way to go. I'd take a business class. So there you go. That's much more useful, I think. Okay.
All right. Now you may move on to the next
question.
Yes.
All right. This one's from Jordan in Petaluma. Hey guys, after years of homebrewing, I'm going to try my hand at winemaking this year. I've been peppering local winemakers with questions about process, yeast strains, and fermentation profiles and generally get blank looks in response. What's the deal with winemakers? Are they being cagey, or is their knowledge of fermentation less sophisticated than brewers? I find that hard to believe, but their attention to details seems focused on very different issues than ours. For example, they'll happily pitch yeast anywhere in a 20-degree temperature window, and their options for yeast strains are very limited. Do you have any thoughts on winemaking? What lessons from homebrewing can be applied to make better wine?
It's actually an interesting question. And I think you find, just like in brewing, you'll find breweries where they really don't know a whole lot about yeast or fermentation, and they're just doing whatever. And especially in homebrewing. I mean, they're just sprinkling some dried yeast on top of something, and they don't even pay attention to the temperature. Just if it's cold enough that it won't kill the yeast, that's all they're looking for. And you'll find that amongst winemakers as well. But, as far as, the number of strains, there's a fair number of strains, but a lot of winemakers will use, one strain, a dried yeast. They'll just get a brick of it, that kind of thing. I was at a very interesting winery, Green Valley, GV Cellars in Green Valley, which is like Fairfield. And they grow the grapes there, and I'm sure I heard them say natural fermentation. So they actually don't pitch yeast. They're relying on the yeast that's on the grapes already.
That's interesting.
To do it. And I'll tell you, it's some of the best wine I've had in my life, I thought. It's just absolutely fantastic. Stunningly good. And, I would think with, natural fermentation to be kind of funky or something, but no, not at all. So I was curious to find out more from them, because they seemed like they actually, really knew what they were doing. And I think, there's a lot of the best winemakers, I got to imagine, are tracking a lot of data and a lot of things and paying attention to a lot of details. But I'm sure you'll find winemakers that are just kind of winging it too.
Yeah. Well, I asked a good friend of yours and mine, since I don't know jack about wine. I really don't. I've never done it. I don't even drink it very often. I like cooking with it. But so anyway, I asked John Plessé.
Oh, uh-huh.
And he was kind enough to reply back. He goes, well, to make great wine, you need to understand yeast nutrients, temperature control, pH and acid balance in the must, and sulfite management. And he says, winemaking is really a different breed of fermentation and nutrient control. Mm-hmm. Wine yeast like 75 to 85 F and require 2 to 3 doses of nutrients to finish to dryness. Before a third of the sugar is depleted. Also, proper pH control in the must during fermentation is critical. In red wines, you shoot for a 3.4 to 3.6, and in whites, about a 3.2 pH. And then you undergo the malolactic bacteria fermentation, which has a very narrow window of temperature, 70 to 75 F, which is like 18 to 20 C. If I remember right. And also, if you get any oxygen into the tank or barrel after the malolactic fermentation, then you can just ruin the whole batch. So compared to home brewing, I guess home winemaking is really a different kettle of fish. And John goes on to say that over the years in tasting homemade wine, he's probably only had 10% that he would consider good. He said that it's a lot harder to make a good wine than it is to make a good beer because of the finickiness of the later stages of fermentation, I believe.
I don't know about that. I think, a lot of the winemaking process relies on, selecting the proper starting materials and then, Yeah, fermentation still, matters, but I think a lot of the wine process is, towards the end where you're adjusting the acid, you're, turning malic acid into lactic acid, you're checking the total acidity, you're adjusting the tannins, things like that. So, and also, if you're going to go like into barrels and, then you're talking about, temperature and humidity at which the barrels are stored, which, you're driving off some of the more volatile alcohols, or are you concentrating it down by, allowing more water to leave? All that control has an impact as well. So it's a lot of that little stuff as well. And I think there are tricky things about brewing.
Yeah.
I think it's just a different set. I don't know that, if there was, I mean, maybe there is some great wine making podcasts now. But, I don't know. But, yeah, I think there's less focus on, yeast strains and things like that amongst winemakers. Far more amongst brewers.
Mm-hmm.
So, there you go. Let's do this. Let's take a short break. When we come back, we'll have more of your questions right after this.
Beer tasting games that train your palate, a brewery locator, and the brand new interactive beer style guide. These are just a few of the awesome things you'll find on craftbeer.com. The style guide is a beautiful example of technology in beer. Browse beer style families or turn on the automatic beer style finder and explore beer through color, bitterness, ABV, aroma, and flavor. It's really the coolest way to explore every beer style besides having them all in front of you. Go to craftbeer.com and click on beer styles to start the guide. Plus, enjoy the rest of craftbeer.com, the Brewers Banter blogs, beer education, how to host a beer tasting, and the invaluable draft quality manual. Tons of great content that makes your beer better. Visit the new craftbeer.com right now and explore the website that brings you all the passion, camaraderie, and creativity of the craft beer community. Craftbeer.com, celebrating the best of American beer. A few things happened 30 years ago.
ARPANET migrated to TCP/IP, and the Internet was born. Revenge of the Jedi was renamed Return of the Jedi and opened in theaters. Mila Kunis and Emily Blunt were born, beginning a rad fantasy in my mind.
But all of that pales next to the fact that HopTech opened its doors and began blowing homebrewers right out of their mash tuns. HopTech doesn't fuck around. Real people shipping awesome shit straight to you. Their new website is fast and easy to navigate. Or just call 800-379-4677 and let badass bitch Jade and the gadget guy Roberto blow their warm load of customer service all over you. So visit the site or visit the store in Dublin, California and support those that support you. Get your brewing on at hoptech.com.
Hey, my brewing brothers and sisters. This is Jamel Zainasheff, and I want to tell you about Heretic Evil Twin. You might be familiar with my homebrew recipe, which uses massive late hopping to create a balance between the malty sweet and the hoppy bitter, along with an outrageous malt and hop character. I wanted a beer with the same bold hop and malt character, so we played around with the homebrew recipe until we were able to make a great commercial version too. We've created a beer rich in malt character, full of caramel, toast, biscuit, and an ever so subtle roast note. On top of that, we piled in an insane amount of Citra and Columbus hops at the end of the boil, as well as in dry hopping. This damn-the-cost approach to hopping gives Heretic's Evil Twin a great blast of citrus and tropical fruit that can't be matched by any other hop. The result is a bold, malty, hoppy, but easy-drinking beer. This is our top seller, our flagship beer, and I couldn't be prouder of it. Cheers.
To find Heretic beers near you, click on Find Some at hereticbrewing.com. Williams Brewing is your online resource for prompt delivery of quality home brewing supplies. Since 1979, Williams Brewing has offered the finest equipment and the freshest ingredients, backed by the best customer service in the business. Do you like to mash using efficient fly sparging, but would like an easy way to heat your strike and sparge water? Enter the new Brewer's Edge electric mash water heater, a plug-in, anywhere, precisely controlled heater for strike and sparge water. Ditch the fumes and second burner and make mashing easy. Go to williamsbrewing.com today and browse their vast selection. That's williamsbrewing.com. Orders placed by 4 p.m. Pacific Time weekdays ship the same day. Brewing is easy the Williams way.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. Enjoying a lovely day in the studio.
It is a fine day.
It is a fine day.
With good beers,
fine
too.
Day. A light breeze up. It has cooled down. It has gone from 100 degrees to 75 degrees. It is the end of days is happening.
That is a big improvement.
Yes. Speaking of big improvements, no. Next question. I didn't have anything.
All right, you tried. This one's from John and Salinas. Hey lads, been cycling through a few different dry hopping practices, and one I wanted to know more about was adding hops before primary fermentation was finished. I get the whole oxygen scavenging from the yeast, but what about flavor aroma contributions from the metabolizing of glycosides? Is that a real thing, or is it just the warm temp that's extracting more oils? It's really keeping me up at night.
Well, the glycosides are a real thing.
Yeah.
I wouldn't dump dry hops in on really active fermentation because I think you do blow off some of the volatile compounds with that.
Yeah.
And I don't think warmth is, that huge a thing other than, I think a lot of the compounds that are extractable are as extractable maybe in the 60s as they are in, low 60s as they are in the upper 60s. It depends what kind of temperature range you're talking about. If you're talking to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, 0 C, then, well, yeah, that's not going to work very well. But who dry hops that cold?
Maybe in Europe, I don't know.
They do all sorts of weird things in Europe.
Yeah, glycosides are still kind of TBD in terms of proving what their contribution is. At the ASBC conference this past summer, right after NHC, had a real interesting paper from Oregon State University where a great experiment that had inconclusive results showing cause and effect of hop glycosides to esters in the beer. Everybody was kind of disappointed, but it's like, well, back to the lab, do some more experiments. But other brewers, such as Matt Cole from Fatheads and Mitch Steele, have all commented on the fact that dry hopping with yeast gives a different character overall than dry hopping off the yeast or after the yeast has been pulled from the fermenter. The dry hopping with on the yeast, as it were, not necessarily in primary fermentation, but just having more yeast suspended in the beer tends to give more of the higher fruit character than doing it off the yeast. So, just a couple data points there, points of interest.
Well, and I think the homebrewer needs to take this with here's where we start running afoul of things. It's like, well, brewery X does this and brewery Y does that, and so I should do that with my brewing, and that's never really, because a lot of times in the homebrew setting, there's a ton of yeast left in the beer.
Uh-huh.
It's not like they're crashing it and fining it or filtering it or something like that. And so there's considerable amount of yeast already.
Good point.
So I don't know that... and when most people dry hop in homebrew, there's still a ton of yeast left in there. How early on do you need to dry hop? I mean, active fermentation. I mean, fermentation keeps going, and the hops, the yeast is still pretty active for a long time. So, I don't know. Like I said, there's quite a bit of yeast in suspension. But glycosides are a real thing. I think when we first started talking about it, it was with Brynolfson quite a few years ago. And when we're doing a Can You Brew It, I think. So I don't know that. Here's my guidance for the home brewer. Maybe yours will vary, John, but I think stop worrying too much about what a specific brewer does. It's so easy for you to try as a home brewer. To do a batch, do a double batch, and one carboy, the other carboy, and one do it colder, one do it earlier, whatever things you want to experiment with.
Yeah.
And try and see the difference yourself. I mean, the cost is not that high. It's fairly easy to do. You could even take a beer, divide it up, 5 gallons of beer, divide up into 5 1-gallon jugs, and dry hop each with the same hops, same amounts, and different times or temperatures or something like that, and see what you get, and then let us know. I think that would be quite interesting. It's so easy to do in a commercial setting. I can't take my 120 barrels of beer and just pour it into a bunch of containers. I mean, I could, but I think, it's the perfect things for homebrewers to try, and then see what you like. You don't really need to know what the actual mechanism behind it is. What you need to know is, how does that taste compared to what you want it to taste like? I think that's the more important thing. What guidance would you give the homebrewer, John, on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage the homebrewer not to get too wrapped around the axle on, do I need to achieve glycosides in my beer? I mean,
right, exactly.
There are so many other factors that really take precedence over that. As I think I agree with you, Jamil. Do it before, do it after. See which way you like better. I mean, or does it in fact make a difference in your system? Because really,
there's so many factors.
There's so many factors, and there's such a really big difference between, say, Fathead's Brewery's equipment and system and your system that, this factor may not even be in play. So, by all means, try it, but don't get hung up on it.
Right. And especially, the yeast that's used and the pitching rates and, the kind of alcohols that are present, the acids that are present. All these things are going to have an effect on, how the hops are perceived as well.
Yeah.
So, it's a very intricate thing, and I think the best way is to just try it and see what you like. So that's kind of the way that I would go with it. All right.
Sounds good.
Next question.
This one's from Rich in Providence, Rhode Island. Dear Brew Strong, I had a question about blending yeasts. I like to brew Belgians, and one of my favorite strains is WLP 500, the Chimay yeast. My one major gripe with it is that it has a notoriously long lag time after pitching, and I am always really nervous until I start seeing activity in the airlock. I always make sure to make a proper starter and add oxygen prior to pitching. My question is this. Is it possible for me to pitch a second yeast at the same time to reduce the lag time? The catch is I am not looking to blend flavors or have the second yeast outcompete the Chimay yeast. So I could achieve the results that I am aiming for by underpitching a second strain, whether it's Cal Ale, say Fail 05, or a similar Belgian strain, at the same time as the 500 that has a starter. Again, I'm looking to essentially preserve the flavor of 500 and achieve the peace of mind that my beer has started fermentation and is outperforming unwanted bacteria sooner rather than later.
I would just pitch more WLP 500.
Right. Or, yeah, I mean, certain yeasts are slow to go and slow to finish. Some of the Saison strains are very much like that. I'm not sure that I would, if he's under pitching now, but he likes, or what I would consider under pitching, and he likes that flavor, then I would just keep doing it the same. But if, so.
A second strain like Cal Ale or something, I think would, I don't think that would help.
Well, you can, but, it's just a weird question for me because he's worried about the bacteria, but it sounds like he's brewed with this before. Did he have a problem with bacteria before? I mean, if he didn't have a problem with bacteria before, then why worry about it now?
Yeah, he just doesn't like the long lag time. But
right, but some of these yeasts, it takes them a while to get kicking, and that's just the way they are. Yeah, I mean, you could start out warmer, you could start out with more, you could start out, you could ratchet down the amount of oxygen, which tends to increase the lag. But, when I was home brewing, I would, sometimes on lagers, before I had a good way of chilling lagers, lager wort, I would put it in the fridge overnight. And 24 hours later, I'd drop the tube and pitch my yeast.
Yeah, I think really that's a almost more important consideration. Is like, if your sanitation is good, it almost doesn't matter how long that lag time is. I mean, your sanitation is good. The beer is not going to go bad in the 36 hours it takes for the yeast to kick off. You've pitched, and it's going to ferment well.
Right.
Unless he has a history of contamination that he didn't mention. But
then he should be addressing that. I think you make a good point, John, where if instead of trying to pitch another yeast just to address this, why not look at the sanitary aspects and make sure that those are perfect, and then you've got the peace of mind there, and you don't have to mess around by throwing in another yeast. You can do a fairly simple test. You can take some wort, put it in a container, a whirl pack or a plastic container, and then heat that up. Keep it around 85 degrees, and see if you get any sort of fermentation, any gas production, or any haziness in there. It's going to tell you have wild yeast or bacteria in that wort sample. So before you pitch your yeast, you grab that and throw that in there, and then you go pitch your yeast in the main batch. But you've pulled off a sample before pitching, and you kind of do a test to see
what your contamination risk is.
Contaminated, right? Yeah. Exactly, and you can do that without any real lab gear, so it's fairly easy. And if that comes out clean, you're good. You're good. That way you'll know. And you'll have that peace of mind that, it doesn't really matter that I have a 36-hour or 48-hour lag. So I'd focus more on that. You could, pitch other yeasts, but it will affect the overall flavor of the beer. It's not going to really do, especially if it gets started first, it's just going to mess around with the flavor of the beer. So I wouldn't bother.
Yeah.
I'd try and fix, the core worry there. Yeah.
Yep.
All righty. Let's do this. One more break, and then we'll come back and wrap it up. All right.
Sounds good.
We'll be back right after this.
Your support of the Brewing Network means everything to us. We couldn't produce shows without you. And we love giving you something extra for that support, like Brew Your Own magazine. You already know it's a great brewing magazine full of recipes, equipment how-tos, discussions of beer styles, and brewing techniques. Whether you're new to brewing and just starting out or you're an old pro, you'll always learn something from the articles in Brew Your Own. Plus, there are amazing special issues like plans for building a Brutus 10 system, 250 classic clone recipes, and the Homebrewer's Answer Book. Brew Your Own magazine and BYO.com are awesome resources for any brewer, whether for yourself or as a gift. When you subscribe or resubscribe from the Brewing Network homepage, you directly support programs like this. Get a great magazine and support the Brewing Network. Subscribe to Brew Your Own right from thebrewingnetwork.com.
Say hello to my little friend.
You've heard about White Labs Pure Pitch yeast. Pure Pitch is yeast grown right in its final packaging. That means yeast that has never been exposed to the environment. And White Labs Pure Pitch yeast for homebrewers is now available to everyone at homebrew retailers nationwide. Easy to use, perfectly sized, and ready to pitch. White Labs yeast, packaged using their Flex Cell process, ensures the purest yeast on the market. Visit whitelabs.com to learn more about Pure Pitch, Flex Cell technology, and how it's created. Then visit a homebrew retailer near you for your own perfectly sized package of Pure Pitch yeast. And you can say hello to your own little friend. www.whitelabs.com. Attention homebrewers, if you like making labels for your handcrafted awesomeness and wished more people could see how great you are, then check this out. Grog Tag, the makers of custom reusable labels, and craftbeerandbrewing.com are hosting the first ever National Homebrew Label Awards. The top 10 labels will be featured at the 2015 National Homebrewers Conference in San Diego to more than 5,000 attendees, and more than $2,500 in prizes will be awarded. If you created a label at any time in the past year, you're eligible to enter. Grog Tag and Craft Beer and Brewing have teamed up with great sponsors like More Beer and the Brewing Network to make this competition a great one to enter. Submit your entries between March 1st and June 1st for your chance at fortune and glory at homebrewlabelawards.com. That's homebrewlabelawards.com. Submit your label entries today. Good luck, and we'll see you in San Diego.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. It's me, John, and Porno Steve here. All right, Porno Steve. Read us the next question, please.
All right, this one. This one's from Trevor. Hi, John and Jamil.
See, this is the problem with cameras in the studio.
Yeah.
Because people know.
People know.
They know you look like Porno Steve.
All right. Question. You guys have talked about cold steeping spices to get a different flavor profile from them before adding to the wort. Can you run through the process to keep everything sanitary? Should I boil water, let it cool in a sealed container, add spices I baked on low in the oven so they're sanitized, and then later pour the tea into the wort?
Okay, well, yeah, you get a different flavor profile depending on the temperature you steep the spices at. And for an example, I'm talking about, say, cinnamon sticks, or what's another one? Allspice. Common spices that are used in, say, Christmas style beers. But this also goes for other aromatics such as chamomile, coriander, and other things. If you steep them cold, you'll get more of just the aroma character from them. And it's the same for coffee and dark grains such as black malt. You get more of the, stick your nose in the bag, dry aroma if you do a cold steep for a long period of time. Now, how do you keep that sanitary? Well, the spices themselves aren't necessarily laden with bacteria. Because they're dried, they're not a very good nutrient source. So,
malt is dried too, and it's
but that's a very potent one. Yeah, I've been into like cardamom, cinnamon, so on. So, I guess if you want to be very cautious.
I guess the lightning finally did take out Rock Candy. It got him.
It got him.
It got him. He was staring at the cloud too long, and it got him. Yeah, I'm not that big a fan of cold steeping. I think if you want to do something like that, and you're talking about spices, the best way to do it, I think what the listener is suggesting sounds overly complex and too much worry. I'll tell you, how we do a lot of things. At Heretic, we'll just throw spices into the beer, just loose, throw them in, and then we check the beer later on, and sure enough, there's no contamination whatsoever. Lab shows nothing. So, I think the alcohol in some ways will protect it. If you want to have an extra layer of protection, what I would suggest is taking, some vodka or something like that and steeping your grains in that. You can steep them cold in the vodka. I think you get the same effect, and then you can just pour that, dose that into your beer. The amount of alcohol is minimal. It really isn't going to change it. Not even close to what a non-alcoholic beer is. And you can, dose the right amount of spice flavor that you want. That's always, I think, the easier way to go than with the other. So, just use vodka instead of water. And like they say, in vodka there's strength, and in water there's bacteria. Right? That's the perfect way to go.
Lost connection there for a second.
There you
go. All right. Well, I finished up the question without you. Done.
Good.
I don't know if you were going to say anything intelligent. I just assumed you weren't, so I just went on without you and wrapped it up.
I have full faith.
All right. Did you have full faith in the Sour Hour?
I do.
There you go. They're doing another show Friday around noon, I think.
Oh, cool.
Lauren Salazar is going to be on. With,
really?
Jay.
Okay.
Yeah. Should be a fun show.
Yeah.
And I'm sure all the shows are quite interesting to listen to. There you go. So check it out. Sour Hour on the Brewing Network. All right. I was going to say one last question, but no. Porno Steve just jumped on the...
He's got his finger on the button.
Yeah, he's like, he wants to get the hell out of here. Go shoot another porno. Dang, man. That's cold. See, we'll never get to all the questions if you keep this up. Yeah, he's fine with that. He doesn't, I don't know, maybe he's on cocaine. That's what I've heard.
Well, if you're listening live...
I've been clean for a while.
Yeah.
Trying.
Yeah, what time is it now? All right. So, if you enjoy the show, make sure to check out the other Brewing Network great shows, and check out the Brewing Network store, brewingnetwork.com/store. There's lots of goodies in there. You buy that stuff, it all goes to the bottom line of the Brewing Network. It helps keep shows like this on the air. And check out our fine sponsor, Blickman Engineering. Blickman with a B. And tell John we said howdy. Till then, everybody, brew strong.
Brew strong.